In this chapter, I'm going to start to do a first pass of polypaint into ZBrush for this character. So here I'm starting to use a spray brush using a color that is really a vivid red and spraying around an intensity of 30-35%. So I start to give quite a strong base. It's a sort of a subdermal painting, imagining all these blood vessels and all the reddish parts that are under the skin. This is a technique that is used quite a lot in the film industry to paint real prosthetic with the airbrush. You can create a quick paint into ZBrush, and it's really fascinating the ability that we have into ZBrush to really replicate and take inspirations from traditional techniques that have been used for many years in the film industry or in traditional painting or sculpting. That's, I think, a plus that we can add to our work to make it more interesting. In order to visualize better the paint, I turn on Wax Preview in the render properties and in the material properties. This is a sort of a preview that is very similar to an SSS shader, which look much more similar to a waxy skin. The second pass is a really deep purple-blue color, and you can start to see what is called optical mixing. So basically, spraying blue and spraying red, it starts to give me this sort of really vibrant purple color, and it's giving me a really good base. Now I'm adding a third pass, which is quite a bright yellow, and these are the areas where the bones are going to be more visible through the surface or the fatty areas. All this variation is going to give me an extremely rich base to start from. You can see how they're starting to blend all together nicely. After these three passes are finished, I'm going to start to spray a bit more in detail around the eyes, giving a bit of a more reddish areas. And I'm going to start to look all around the different angles of the head, comparing and getting inspired by the mood board. Now I'm starting to give a greenish pass. It's a sort of adding a skin layer on top, and this is going to help me to blend these colors all together. I'm trying to go with an RGB intensity that is not too strong, so I don't cancel all the work that was done before, but mostly I'm blending these three colors little by little. And you can see that the deeper area are getting much more dark, and some area are sort of mixing with the red and the other colors. I'm going to do few passes like that to blend and keep more alive this character. This, as I said before, is very similar to painting with an airbrush a real prosthetic or a real sculpture, and it's still used by many people that do miniature or prosthetic. It feels really great to be able to use such a traditional technique and transition it into ZBrush. Now I'm moving to the hands, where I'm continuing to blend with this greenish color on top. And sometimes I'm also going to switch color and picking the color from different areas and reblending again, making sure there is a good variation, and this will make the final result much more interesting and much more vibrant for sure. Sometimes I'm picking and adding a lighter color, implying a sort of a different luminosity in the skin. And in some other more deep area, I'm going with a darker color again. Here I'm starting a new pass, just painting white with the Dem Standard brush. Make sure to turn off your ZAD and just painting color. I'm basically doing little scratchy marks of a shape of a 8 or circles. This is another technique which is used quite a lot in the paint of miniature or prosthetics for films. A lot of people may argue that this is not the fastest and most efficient way of working, because nowadays we think that we can do everything procedurally. But if you're learning ZBrush and you want to give a feeling of a more natural and handmade texture, I strongly recommend to try it. Maybe sometime in film production there is no time to do this sort of pass, but definitely is worth to give it a go. Now I'm going to continue on the ends, still with the same technique. Mottling in white and breaking up the surface of the skin. You can quickly see how this is taking shape and from just a sort of a uniform soft color, it's going to take a much more interesting breakup all over the skin. It's no doubt that you need to be real patient for this, but for sure it's going to repay you at the end of the work. It's always surprising how this in reality very simple technique sometimes can give you such a great result and look so realistic at the end, starting just with little scratches and airbrush. Now I'm moving back again on the legs. You can see clearly the spray that we did before looks really like an airbrush with the dots. But when you start to do the mottling pass, everything starts to break up and start to look like skin after just a few minutes of work. In the next step, I'm going to start to mask, and particularly starting with the mask by cavity. Then I'm inverting the mask and hiding the mask with Ctrl H and giving also a little bit of blur. It really depends on the model. And then I'm going to paint again in the deepest area of the skin where all these little details that we sculpted before are sort of receding. So in this area I go with a dark red, and this you can see that very fast is going to give me a lot of details. I still believe that it's better to do this pass in ZBrush rather than Substance Painter, because although I can bake a lot of the details, I don't think that I can get back 100% of the sculpt that I have here. So that's why many times I do this first pass in ZBrush. Here I'm masking again by smoothness, and I'm inverting the mask. Then I hide the same mask, and I'm going to paint again with a much lighter color, so that these areas that are popping out on the surface will have a much lighter color added to them. It's a quite fast pass. Now I'm using mask by smoothness, and I'm inverting the mask. In this area I'm going with a very light color, sometimes quite close to white, or sometimes I just pick the color on the skin and I just go for a brighter value. This is going to give me the feeling of some areas they are more consumed on the face of the frog. Now I'm going again with another mask, peak and valley, inverting the mask and going to paint over that again. Sometimes I use the trim dynamic, but just using the RGB instead of the sculpt. In this way I can add again on the peak some areas of discoloring. And I'm going to continue with the same process all over the body, the hands and the feet. Here the first pass of the diffuse texture is pretty much done in ZBrush, and I'm going to export. So I made sure that all the visible objects that I want to export the texture for are visible. And here under Multimap Exporter, texture from Polypaint, make sure all the subtools is checked, so it's going to export the visible ones. Merge maps, this is going to merge the maps in the same UDIM, 4K. Double check the export option file name. UDIM is correct. Texture map is color. Looks good. And then I can create all maps. Diffuse. Here now I'm in Substance Painter, and the first thing I'm going to do is go to Import and import resources. And I'm going to import all the diffuse textures. And I'm going to call all of them diffuse body. Here I'm going to pick up the textures and apply them to the material. Here I'm starting to organize my materials and checking as well that the scattering is working. She's going to give me a much better preview of the skin. So I'm just dragging and dropping them into the base color, and you can see all the UDIMs are applied. Now I'm going to the head and repeating the same operation again. And everything is working correctly. Now we can start to paint. Now I'm going to show you how to fix little baking problems in Substance Painter. Using the B key, you can cycle through the different bakes, and you can see there is a little error here in the area of the mouth. Usually what I'm going to check is the normals and the ambient occlusion, since these are the maps that affect the most our texturing. So how do we fix this? We can export these mesh maps using the export window. So Ctrl-Shift-E is the shortcut, and you get access to the export window. Here we only need to export the head, and we need to choose which template. Here there is a list of different templates, and the one that we want to use is this one, Mesh Maps. In this case we don't need to export all of them, so we need to go back here and decide which one to export. We only use this normal and the ambient occlusion. For some strange reason the full name is not showing up here. I believe there's a little bug that hopefully will be fixed in the next versions. So what you can do is you just hover and you can see the full name. So these are the normals and this is the ambient occlusion. So now you're ready to export. Then we can fix these textures very easily in Photoshop. In Photoshop now I just created another layer And I'm going to paint over the area that is not working. I basically pick the color from the texture and cover the offending area. After that, I'm going to export this texture and reapply the texture into Substance Painter. Here now in Substance Painter, I'm going to re-import the texture. I did a bit of retouching to the ambient occlusion and also to the normal maps. And I'm going to import them as a texture. Here I'm just reloading the normal maps into the mesh maps. And the ambient occlusion as well. And you can see that now the result is pretty clean. But I'm not happy 100% about the lips in the ambient occlusion. And I'm going back to Photoshop to do another retouch. I'm going again with a very soft brush and I'm picking a much lighter value, pretty much close to white or completely white in most of the cases. And I'm going to do another pass. Then I'm going to export the texture again. And re-importing back the ambient occlusion. You can see now that ambient occlusion and normals are perfectly clean. Here I'm going to create a fill layer with red and only affecting the color. I'm masking this and adding some procedurals. Dirt, basically little spots. I'm adding little red spots under the skin. Then I'm duplicating the same spots and offsetting and changing the size. Now I'm creating some more blue spots with exactly the same technique. I'm changing the scaling and in some cases moving the offset, giving in this way much more variation. This is starting to break up in a really nice way all the skin. If you look closely to frog skin, you can see they have a lot of these dots of different colors. The next layer are black dots using the same technique, but I'm changing the mask. So these are bigger splotches of black, but I'm going to tile them quite a lot. So at the end they will be very small. Now I'm going to start to work on the scatter and I'm going to add a mask again and a fill inside. And inside this I'm going to load the thickness mesh map and starting to work with the values adjustments until I found a value that I like. This is going to create a nice transition in the SSS shader where the white will be more reddish and we get more SSS effect, and in the other areas less and less effect. Then I'm going to add a little paint layer and I'm going to remask some of the areas. Here I'm using paint with symmetry, so I'm going to be much faster painting half of the texture. Now I went back to ZBrush because I didn't like how the cavity map was working for me. So what I'm doing here, I'm just basically using masks. I'm remasking by cavity, but before that I clear the polypaint and I fill the object with white. Now I'm masking the object and inverting the mask and then filling with black all the cavities. I'm doing the same here. I'm just filling with white the object, masking by cavity, playing with the different settings to find something that I like. In some instances, I may blur the mask or not. Then I invert the mask and I'm filling with black all the crevices. And now I'm going to export this as a polypaint texture. Basically, I'm using the polypaint to export just this black and white cavity mask, and then applying and using this cavity mask into Substance Painter. This is going to enrich a lot of my texture because I can get a lot of the tiny details that are very difficult to get otherwise baked in Substance. Now I'm going to paint the roughness on the lips. Basically, I'm creating a material that only affects roughness. I'm making it very, very shiny. And then painting a mask into it. So these areas will be extremely wet. All around the eyes. And also the areas around the lips and the nostrils. Now I'm adding another one of the pre-made materials in Substance. It's a skin material that has a pretty good bump quality, and I use it quite often to add some extra, let's say, bump displacement detail. I just drag it on top of everything and just to keep on the height. And you can see that it's quickly adding a really nice, very organic pattern on top. Here I'm just creating a mask over it and paint the areas that I want to show. Now I'm taking all the work that I've done on the head. I put everything in a folder and copy and paste this material on top of the body. In this way I can reuse what I've done on the head, doing just some little variation, painting again some of the masks and some of the areas. Always renaming my material and keep everything organized. See, this is the base and these are the red dots, so I'm basically going bottom to top and make sure to rebuild the shader in a way that is coherent and recreating and reapplying the masks. In some cases I'm going to have to re-import some masks, but this is a really small job compared to recreating everything from scratch. You can see here I'm reapplying the new cavity map, which I created before in ZBrush, and inverting. You can see how much detail I can get just from that mask. Then going on top in the ambient occlusion, using some sharpening and making adjustments with the levels. Here I'm just applying the ambient occlusion for the body and the roughness and checking that everything is working properly. And then I'm adding an extra pass on top. Here you can see I'm masking this bump which I added from that skin material before, and is adding quite a lot of randomness and breakup to the surface. I'm switching on and off to compare before and after. Now I'm adding on top of everything effect that I use quite a lot and give me really nice results in the past. It's just a material effects wet and drops. Just in a matter of seconds, it's going to give me the effect of little drops of water on top of the skin of our character. I imagine that this wet pass is going to give a really nice effect to our frog. I imagine that our frog friend is going to be always wet. And you can see you can also export normal and displacement, which are going to give you a really nice feeling for these little tiny water drops. Here I'm adding some few more layers, creating some more breakup on the skin. Basically I'm adding another fill and some procedural masks just to create more and more breakup. In this case, a sort of a brown color breakup with a procedural grunge mask. I use also the sharpen to sharpen the mask and levels. Now I'm going to start to draw this black outline around the eyes. And it's just straight paint. I'm just creating a material and masking and painting basically a white mask, which is going to reveal. I believe that this is going to add some more character to our guy, creating all these little lines and darker areas around the nose and other parts of the face. For sure, this will drive much more attention to his eyes. And also the ear. Many times they have these quite nice patterns around these areas, which I thought would be nice to just to replicate. Now I'm going to create a couple of more layers and add much bigger dots in a darker red brownish color, and then also in blue. Here I'm starting just to specify some areas and just literally painting dot by dot. But in a bit I'm going to switch to another brush which has already an alpha made with multiple dots. Here now I'm going to other areas of the head with this dotted brush. This is going to be quite fast, and I'm going to do a couple of passes with red and purple blue. I believe that this is going to add quite a lot to the texture and make it much more alive, always working with the principle of color mixing and optical mixing, which is going to mix the color for us. You can see how much more alive is this texture now. I collected few really interesting photographs of frogs' eyes, and I'm going to start to test a couple of them. I'm going to just create another layer and start to paint on top to clean all the reflection on the eyes. I thought that this would be quite an interesting eye, and I'm going to test it in a bit. Here I'm back into Substance and I'm trying different eyes. I tried 3 or 4 of these, and at the end I settled down for this one, which I think is going to work much better for our character. I think this bright yellow is going to work very well in contrast with his bright green skin. Here I'm going to do some projections and a bit of adjustments until I find a good position for it. That's where we are at the moment with our little friend here. I did a little change in the eyes. I just repainted more yellow because I thought that this very vivid yellow goes really well in contrast with the color of his skin. Overall, the skin is pretty much done, and in the next chapter we're going to texture the clothing.